Happy Monday, game makers. Today, what I want to do is I want to create some enemies because a game isn't a whole lot of fun to play if there's nothing that's kind of making it difficult for you. So you can see up here, I've already loaded in the sprite for the SPR enemy basic. And I know basic is it's kind of a bad word. Nobody wants to be described as basic, but as you'll see, it really fits this enemy. So no offense, enemy. So the enemy is going to start outside of the room. We haven't really done any of that. So there's going to be some new learning, and that particularly is going to be about things that originate outside the room. So the first thing I want to do is I want to come here and I want to create an object. I'm going to give it the sprite of the enemy basic, and I need a create event. And what I'm going to do is like I had done before, I am going to simply give it a vertical speed which is under move. So since it's a new object, I've got to go find it. There it is. And the vertical speed for now is going to be 3. I may decide to change that later. Another thing that I want to have happen is I want to make sure that my enemies are being destroyed if they get to the bottom of the screen. Now, earlier when we did the player bullet, we destroyed the object when it was off the screen. But because I'm going to originate this enemy off the screen, that's not going to work. So I'm going to use the step event, and the step is checked every frame. So that's a good way of making sure, okay, check for this. If this is true, then do something. And the thing that we're going to check for whether or not it's true or not is if the variable y is greater than, and I don't want my enemy to just disappear, vanish off the screen. So I want to make sure that it's moved down the screen and is completely off before it's destroyed. So I'm going to go ahead and say if the Y is greater than room height, then you can see the autofill, which is pretty cool. And in most game engines, it'll predict what you're trying to say and give you the opportunity to fill it in. But I'm a pretty decent typist, so I rarely use it. So if the um, Y is greater than room height plus 32, which means the center of my plane will be 32 pixels below the screen. Then I want something to happen. And the thing I want to have happen is I want this enemy to be destroyed. So I have an enemy. When it's created, it's going to move down the screen. And when it gets off the screen, it's going to be destroyed. And that will prevent me from having 35 or 100 or 200 enemies that are being existing in memory and using up my computer power, but not contributing to the game. So I have a create event, I have a step event, and I don't quite have a collision event with it yet, but maybe I'll add that later depending on how long this video goes. And then what I want to do is I'm going to come here to the control, and I'm going to set an alarm in the control to create an enemy every second. So in my create, set an alarm. Remember that GameMaker 2 has a default frames per second of 60. So if I left it at 30, now it would create 2 enemies a second. And I don't really want that. I'm going to want it to create once every 60 steps or every 1 second. And then when that alarm goes off, I want to create a new instance of my basic enemy. And for now, I'm gonna I'm gonna ooh, I didn't give that a name. Very bad teaching, Mr. White. Um, I'm gonna say I want it to occur at random room width, and I want it to originate above the screen. So I'm going to say minus 64 just to make sure it doesn't just pop into existence. I want it to make sure that it's off the screen. It's going to be on the instances layer. So that's where by default all your objects will go. And so that's all I'm going to need. And then I'm going to have to reset my alarm, of course, or I'll get exactly 1 enemy. So when I go ahead and play this, I don't recall if I put the controller in my room because that's what's going to be. Oh, it looks like I did right there. That's actually what's going to spawn the enemy. So let's see if I can get enemies coming in 1 per second. No, I made a mistake. So it looks like um, room height. I may have got a typo there. So this is not the flawless diamond of a video that I did before. So let's see. Did I misspell room height? Yes, I did. Um, well, can't win them all. So actually, I'm going to use this built-in function just so you can see it. So I'm going to type in room height, and there it is. If I just click on that and then say plus 32, now I'm guaranteed to get it right. So let's give that a try. And you can see I get an enemy. It looks like I need to scale that sprite up because it's pretty small. But I am curious as to why I only got one. So let's go back to our control, and I don't see it. Why am I only getting? Oh, I didn't do an alarm event. Oh, that's right. See, these are all mistakes I'm making on purpose. I know that most of you must have been screaming at me, Mr. White, don't forget the alarm. You'd be right. So that's where I want this to happen. I want to create the object, um, random room width minus 64, then reset my alarm, and go back to my create event, which I did wrong here. And I just want to set the alarm. I don't want to create the object right away. So let's try that. And I'm going to go ahead and scale up my enemy too. Um, I'm not sure. I thought I did this beforehand, but I guess not. So go up here to image, resize all frames, and I'm going to scale the image by percent, scale it up 125. And you'll notice, I don't know why this happens, but it scales up not by an even amount. Um, Interesting thing, but it's okay. It'll be fine. Let me just make sure we're still centered, middle center, and let me give that a try. So I made some mistakes here, but I'll review what's going on. So there's some enemies. They're coming down a little fast. I'm betting that I did not set the alarm to 60. So let's find out. No, I got to go to the controller. Alarm. Yep, it's still at 30, so I'll fix that. And then one thing that I do want to do is no, I'm going to save that for later. So let's see if I can get some enemies spawning in off the screen and then having them destroyed once they get off the screen. So those sprites are a better size. You can see I'm generating them. Um, I don't quite have a collision yet, so maybe I can do that real fast. So you can see up here the explosion one I do have loaded. Uh, One thing that a lot of people got wrong on the last quiz was that when you have an animated sprite, the the um, the extension is always an underscore. Uh, ooh, underscore. I'm drawing a blank here. Strip 3. So you can see that explosion 1 is actually a 6-frame animation. So it's underscore strip 6. I misspoke in my last video. Explosion to strip 7. So it's underscore strip and then the number of frames. So I already have that loaded. I'm going to create the object explosion. So I'm going to remember to name this. I'll fix all the mistakes that I'm making off screen. So I'm going to call that explosion 1. I'm going to give it explosion 1 strip 6. And then I'm going to use animation end. An animation end is just simply when the last frame is played, then I'm going to destroy the explosion. So let me go to my object. I'll think I'll do this in the plane. I'm going to add an event, collision with the player bullet. And what I want to have happen is number 1, I want to create an instance of the explosion at 0, 0 relative. So wherever the center of my enemy is going to be, this explosion will be created there. It'll be created on the instance layer. And then I want my enemy to be destroyed. So it's going to create a different object, a different instance of the explosion, and then it's going to destroy itself. I don't have any sounds loaded. I'll do that in another video. So let me go ahead and play here and see if I can shoot some enemies. Oh yeah, but you'll notice there's a little bit of a bug here. And when we're programming in class, I like to think of bugs as not something that crashes the game, but something that's an unintended object. And can you tell what it is? Yes, it's absolutely the fact that our bullet exists. Um, After destroying an enemy, it's going to make us too overpowered. So before I destroy this, before I destroy the enemy, I actually want to destroy the other. And in this case, the other is the player bullet. But if there's more than one player bullet, this will be buggy. So I'm going to say the other thing in the collision. You'll notice that it gives a purple outline of this action. And that always indicates that this action is affecting not the object in control or that owns it. In this case, our basic enemy, which I'm going to fix right now. OBJ basic enemy. And this is, of course, now I have to update that in my controller, I believe. Maybe it'll update it. So it's going to create an explosion. It's going to destroy the bullet. And then the last thing it's going to do is destroy itself. If I do these two things in the wrong order, um, if it once an object destroys itself, it doesn't run any more of its code. So I want to make sure that I destroy the object the last thing. And let's see, object control. When the alarm goes off, it looks like it did automatically update for me. So it changed the name to the name I want. So let me do one last thing, and that's test to make sure that this works. So now the player bullet should go away. It does. Awesome. And I have a game where I can start shooting some enemies, and I have a little bit of an explosion animation. So that's pretty good. Now, we can all agree that this video, I didn't get everything right on the first try. And guess that's just going to have to be okay. So what I did in this one is I created a new enemy. I gave it a vertical speed to move down the screen. I checked when the Y was greater than room height plus 32. And when it was, it destroyed the instance so it wouldn't be existing in memory unnecessarily. And I added a collision with the player bullet, which introduced a new object, the explosion at 0, 0 relative. It destroyed the other, which in this case is the bullet, and it destroyed itself. So now I have kind of a playable game. I don't really love this alarm being what introduces enemies, and soon I'm going to talk to you about the wonder of timelines, but that would make this video super long, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that. Just a reminder that in the controller, which you do have to put in the room, I forget to do that all the time. Um, I guess I left this here. I created an oops, this is the wrong event. I set an alarm in the create event, and when the alarm goes off, it introduces a new enemy at a random room width off the screen, and then it resets the alarm. So if you can get all that stuff added to your game, now you can have something that you can start to play a little bit. It's been a long video. Thanks for sticking with me and all my mistakes, and feel free to comment, ask questions. Let me know what I need to do differently to be more effective as a teacher. Thanks for watching.